I'm going to be reading from chapter 2, and all you need to know is that Mabel Rose Dixon has come to New York City to be a Ziegfeld girl, and Ziegfeld hasn't seen the light of day. He hasn't picked her yet. So she's funding her dreams of stardom by picking pockets, and she's just seen the biggest diamond ever go into the hotel on the neck of a very glamorous couple, and she is now going up to their suite. And this is chapter 2. Evelyn pressed the call button and leaned on the wall beside the elevator cage door, slowly expelling another drag on her cigarette as she watched Mabel. So, you two in town for business or pleasure? Mabel offered to get the conversation rolling again. Evelyn held the smoke in for a moment before puffing out a long, trailing cloud. Business and pleasure. We're guests of Frank West. Mabel tried her damnedest not to let her eyes go wide. Frank West was not only the sole heir to the Grand Hotel, but a series of hotels around the country. She had only been in town a couple weeks, but Mabel had already heard of the infamous West family and their annual lavish party. All the papers could talk about for the past month was the reclusive 19-year-old and the hotel empire left to his name, even though he had slunk away from the limelight the moment his parents had disappeared. The girls at the Richardson boarding house for women on the Upper West Side were abuzz with the recent disappearance of Henry and Lillian West, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances and left everything to their son, Frank. Likely a bad deal with the mob on their bootleg liquor, Mabel thought. Everyone at the boarding house was scouring the papers daily for news if Frank would still carry on his parents' tradition of hosting the Grand's annual Maze Eve ball later this month, which had always been open invitation. Despite his recent seclusion, Frank was still one of the most sought-after bachelors in all of New York City. No one had been invited to the Grand as his personal guest, at least not to Mabel's limited knowledge. For some reason, though, he had invited Evelyn and Martin Green. Mabel did not need to find out Frank's plans. She needed to steal the diamond and be on her merry way, but still, it had piqued her curiosity. His personal guest? Are you here for the Maze Eve ball? Mabel pried. Evelyn's eyebrows raised as she drew close to Mabel's ear and whispered a husky, yes. The wolfish look on Evelyn's face made the hairs on the back of Mabel's neck stand on end. What about you, little mouse? Are you here to help prepare for the Maze Eve ball? Or does Frank have you running some other errand? What crack did you scurry through to find your way into this opulent den of sin? Mabel backed away, but in a crowded lobby, there wasn't anywhere to go. My business is my own. Evelyn draped her long form against the wall. Not for long, stage darling. Mabel flushed, partly from anger, partly from mortification. Who did this dame think she was? She didn't know how Evelyn found out about her dreams, but Mabel wasn't going to let Evelyn rattle her. Mabel was grateful the elevator bell rang and announced its arrival, or she might have popped Evelyn on the jaw. The case doors clacked open, revealing an operator no older than 14. The sleeves on his uniform hung a little too big and a little too long. He was the same age as her little sister, Marianne, her heart clenched with the unexpected, violent reminder of how quickly she had fled home without a goodbye. Mabel hoped the city wouldn't chew him up and spit his good heart out the way it had done to her. The kid placed his hand on the round clay. Which floor are you going to, folks? 15, honeymoon suite, Evelyn said, and couldn't have possibly been more bored. She apparently found Mabel far more interesting. The way Evelyn stared hungrily at Mabel gave her the heebie-jeebies. Mabel turned her attention entirely on Martin. So, where are you two from? Down south, he said. Mabel beamed. I'm Southern too, from Atlanta originally. What part of the South are you from? Martin started to open his mouth, but Evelyn shot him a look so scathing, he clammed up. The rickety iron clicked through every level as they rose in awkward silence, which was fine with Mabel, because it gave her time to think of how she was going to swipe that necklace. In a crowd, there were so many more distractions that could cause one to find a piece of jewelry suddenly missing. Mabel's going to have to use herself as a distraction to swipe the yellow diamond. There was only one reason a couple would invite an innocent looking girl such as herself up to their suite. Mabel wasn't interested in a petting party or whatever freaky thing they were into. She would get them talking, let them think they were having a fling, and then swiping the necklace should be duck soup. When they reached the top, the young operator glanced back at Mabel with sorry eyes. It gave her the briefest sensation that she should run, but Mabel shook the feeling off like a dirty old coat. Mabel had nothing to worry about. She had charmed her patrons before, and she could do it again. She just needed to stay sharp, stay smart. Mabel couldn't let the bellhop stouts get the best of her. She kept her focus on the diamond as the bellhop opened the door. Evelyn glided out first. Each of her wide, perfect strides were easily 3 of Mabel's steps. Mabel was the tallest in her class back home, but it struck her odd that everyone at the Grand was so unnaturally statuesque. Evelyn, already halfway down the hall, pivoted on her heel. Do keep up, will you? At this rate, the ice will melt before we reach the room. Absolutely, darling. Martin slipped his arm through Mabel's and led her out of the elevator. He strode Mabel arm in arm down the hall at a clip that she struggled to keep up with. Mabel didn't know why they were in such a rush. Evelyn had just ordered the ice before they left. How could it already be waiting upstairs before they arrived, unless the words ice bucket were code for something else? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So, Mabel said, once they were in the suite, ain't we having a petting party, or are we going to stare longingly at each other all night? Evelyn laughed, and it was like a distant church bell on a hill, sweet and loud. You're right, Martin, keep her company. I need to slip into something more comfortable. She unhooked the necklace and laid it on the bedside table with a thud. Evelyn vanished into the bathroom without so much as a backwards glance. Mabel couldn't believe her luck. The necklace was right there, alone, defenseless. But why? Why would Evelyn leave something so precious just sitting there? Didn't matter. She was closer to it. Martin set his fedora down on the small table. So, Mabel, tell me more about yourself. I want to be a Ziegfeld girl, Mabel said. She stopped, surprised at herself for blurting out such a personal truth. She knew better than to break character, but Mabel couldn't seem to lie to him. Mabel tried to open her mouth and tell him something a wealthy heiress would say, but her words turned to taffy in her mouth every time she tried. It must be the liquor getting to her head. She decided to play coy. There's not much to tell. Well, that's not true at all. Martin took off his jacket one sleeve at a time. In fact, I find you fascinating. A Ziegfeld girl, eh? Who are you? He reached for her hand and drew it up to his mouth. She expected him to kiss the back of her hand, so she let her wrist go limp in his grip. Martin took Mabel's fingers and pressed them against his lips. He let his tongue play over the tips of her fingers. Let's see. She couldn't help but be pulled helplessly into Martin's gravity. She needed to keep him talking, edge her way around the room, grab the necklace, and run before things actually turned hot and heavy. I'm no one of consequence. He grinned. That's not true. You're holding back. Let me help you open up. Mabel withdrew her hand, but Martin held fast. He bit down hard on the tip of one of her fingers. She yelped as she withdrew. There was a little bead of blood from where one of his teeth punctured the flesh of her pointer finger. You bit me. Mabel kept her tongue naive, not wanting Martin to know she was afraid. Why did you do that? I'm going to stop there.